Guess what this is, boy? Board Talk Podcast, Season 2, Episode number 1. Welcome. Let's go. Yeah. Face Squad. Rest in peace to my dude Jefferson Hawker, a.k.a. Jay made it on the beat, man.
Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage.
Yes, sir.
I be on track like Hussein, and I keep it true like 2 Chainz, and I got the strength like 2 Trains. Fight Squad drip, that's new frame. Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage. I be on track like Hussein, and I keep it true like 2 Chainz, and I got the strength like 2 Trains. Fight Squad drip, that's new frame.
I tell them shout out my maker.
They cannot save us.
Yeah.
Super strength, very reason why they can't break us.
Yeah.
I wish I could hold black boy like a taser.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let a word that cut it deep like a razor. Better
give me that.
We say gonna go
like a running back.
Remember that we know
that he coming back.
Guarantee you the devil ain't wanting that. What I swear, what I live.
Ain't no frontin' that.
With the spirit we strong like gorilla past.
Paralyzed say this ain't feeling that.
Ain't no limits, tell me where the ceiling at. In our hearts, you know that's where they
tell
me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me
like Luke Cage.
Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage.
I be on track like Hussein,
and I keep it true like 2 Chainz, and I got the strength like 2 Trains. Fight Squad drip.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Kyren Monteiro, man, and I want to welcome y'all to Season 2 of the Board Talk Podcast, presented by Frequency Canvas. Hand clap. And I know y'all probably like, man, we ain't even take that much of a gap between Season 1 and Season 2, and you right, we didn't. Hand clap for Board Talk episodes from Season 1. The Board Talk Podcast Season 1, man. Go back, listen to all of those episodes. There's 10 of them in the first season. Amazing stuff. A lot of information really to artists. Season 2, we really going to talk more technical stuff of audio production. So to all of my nerds out there who are audio engineers, recording engineers, mixing engineers, master engineers, we definitely going to cover a lot of stuff, starting with episode 1. Also, we definitely are going to cover stuff for podcast production in Season 2, and have some guests on catered to those kind of things. So I'm excited, man. I hope that y'all doing well. This first episode of Season 2, we're going to be talking about analog summon versus digital summon, my boy. Let me say that again. This first episode of Season 2, we're going to be talking about analog summon versus digital summon. And I want to say, man, this is the Board Talk Podcast is presented by none other than Frequency Canvas. And I want to let y'all know to listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, anywhere that podcast can be streamed and downloaded on all major platforms for podcasting. Also, I want to tell y'all that there is a video version available of the podcast on the Frequency Canvas YouTube channel. Head over to YouTube, type in Board Talk Podcast. It's definitely going to come up, like I said, from Frequency Canvas. Hand clap for that. All right. So for those of you who may not know, you're probably like, yo, Kyren, what the heck is digital summon? What is that? What is analog summon? What is summon, period? Like, what is that? And I'm glad that y'all thinking that, because I know there got to be somebody listening to this podcast right now thinking like, what is that? Let's get technical, right? So when you are mixing a record, right, technically anything, a podcast, a movie, but we're going to keep this music related. When you're mixing a record, first off, mixing is where we take all the individual elements of a song. We just talked about this on some of the last episodes in Season 1, the differences between mixing and mastering. So go check that out. On episode 9 called Beyond the Recording Session of Season 1. Go check that out. But when you're mixing a record, all of those individual tracks have to be summed together, meaning that, like, if I have 50 to 100 tracks in a song, they all have to be summed together and have to be presented in a playable format, right? So if I have 50 tracks in a mixing session, all of those have to be grouped together into a stereo file, right? Into a 2-track, meaning that it contains left and right information. And that's what you are hearing records being played on today, right? WAV files, MP3s, AIFF, AAC files, whatever the format may be, you're hearing stereo files. And what that is, that's a left and a right. Hard left, hard right, that's a stereo file. So either the computer is doing this in what we call a DAW, which is a digital audio workstation. So digital audio workstation, that is the software inside of the computer that people use to record, mix, and master songs. But in this sense, we're talking about mixing. So you're going to have softwares like Pro Tools, Logic Pro, Studio One, Ableton Live, Reaper, Luna, Mixcraft, Adobe Audition, FL Studios, Reason. I mean, there's all kind of Cubase in the window. There's all kinds that exist. But what happens is, rather is doing it all digital, or rather there's what we call a hybrid workflow, and analog summing is being introduced. What's happening is that all of these tracks have to be grouped together, right? If you have 50 tracks, if you have 100 tracks, if you got 2 tracks, they are all being routed to a master fader where that final export or render, or as us engineers call that final print, right? That final copy of the mix down, that's what's being presented to the world, to go to master and then to be presented to the world. So originally, before digital technology even exists, it was all analog, right? Big consoles, tape machines with reel-to-reel outboard gear, and everything was done there, right? Then, with the evolution and progression of digital technology and digital recording and mixing, software developers started getting better and better, and slowly but surely, people started moving to DAWs, digital audio workstation, or amateur term, the recording software, the softwares that are used in studios. People started slowly but surely moving to that. And I think, since the late 90s, early 2000s, we've really seen things like Pro Tools, Logic, Cubase, Studio One, etc. We've seen different DAWs come into the picture in the recording industry, right? But there's a debate of digital summing versus analog summing, right? So when we crossed over to digital summing, there was a lot of people that said there was a lot of sonic characteristics that was lost in the digital summing, that analog gave more depth, it gave more space, it gave more width, it gave more headroom, it gave more character, it gave more vibe, it gave more feel to the music. And that's not a lie. There definitely is a difference between the two. But in 2023, digital is so much better than it was in the 90s, in the early 2000s. I mean, it's really come a long way. And so there's a debate right now. It's like, do you even need analog summing to make professional sounding records? So I'm going to answer that question right now. No, you do not. You can perfectly be fine, all digital, no analog summing or gear. You can make a professional sounding record with no analog gear. right? But specifically keeping it to analog summon, no. Analog summon is not needed in 2023. But that does not mean that there is not a benefit to analog summon. So here at Frequency Canvas in our main room, we sum through a small SSL console. The SSL sits, and we come out of that. There's a G-Bus built into that, but we have a warm audio G-Bus clone that we use and some other outboard gear. And I'm not going to lie, digital summon is amazing, but there are things that analog summon brings that we just cannot get inside of digital. Not 100%. We can get a lot of things from digital, but analog summon does have its benefits. So what I want to quickly do is I want to talk about some pros and some cons from my personal experience. And if you search online and other podcasts and do your research, other people that have experience with analog summon and just analog gear, period, tend to say some of the same things. So what I'm talking about is not a new subject, but I want to talk about it from my perspective and my experience because I've been doing this for many years. All right. So let's talk about the pros and cons of summon. Let's go digital summon first. One of the biggest pros of digital summon is that it's a lot more affordable than analog summon. It's a lot more affordable than analog summon. Number two, one of the biggest pros of digital summon is automatic recall, right? What that means is that since if you're doing 100% digital, the software automatically saves it, right? So you don't have to worry about recall. Recall means in the analog world, you have to set the equipment exactly the same every single time. The EQs, compressors, the levels of stuff, the trim of things, all of that has to be set identical to what you had, or it's going to sound different. So automatic recall is great because you don't have to worry about taking recall notes, and you also don't have to worry about having to jump between song to song and recalling and changing stuff. So which brings me to my third point, which I think digital summon has an advantage over analog summon, is it's easier to work on multiple sessions. It's easier to work on multiple records. If I'm working on 10 songs at one time, I'm mixing 10 records at one time, I can just jump from session to session if I'm completely digital 100%. I don't have to worry about the analog gear. All I got to do is just jump between. I don't have to do any offline bouncing, right? So if you run through analog equipment, it has to be recorded back in versus with digital, you can just export it offline. So if sound goes out, it has to come back in. So that's another pro of analog, of digital summon over analog summon, is that you can just hop in between stuff just effortlessly with no thought to it, right? One of the cons of digital summon is that you don't get the same characteristics of analog summon. You just don't. You don't. It's not the same. It's different. They're different. And those characteristics, which I'm going to get into here in a little bit, have an advantage to them. Definitely. So you don't get to have the same. You don't get to get the same characteristics. Another drawback and con of analog summon is ergonomics. I'm 33 right now, so I just turned 33 May 10th, 2023. So I'm gonna show my gray hair a little bit, young OG, you know. So I've been around for a little bit, and one thing that I love to do when I'm working is be hands-on. I like touching stuff. I don't just like using the keyboard and the mouse with the computer and just clicking stuff. Like, I want to be hands-on. It inspires me more. It's a faster workflow. So a drawback of digital summon is that, you have less physical gear in the studio. And some people may not care about that. These days you can just have a laptop and an interface and some headphones and get a lot of work done. So that's one of the drawbacks, is that, you got less ergonomics. You can't be as hands-on. Let's jump in to some of the pros of analog summon, right? We just talked about some pros and cons of digital. Let's hop over to analog summon. What's some of the pros of analog summon? The characteristics that analog summon brings, number one, is just a very added benefit that people still admire to this day. You get more depth. You're going to get more space. You're going to get a more defined stereo image that seems wider, right? You're going to get more color. You're going to get more character. You're going to be able to hear those reverb tails a lot more. You're going to be able to hear delays a lot more better and defined. The pocket of the midst the pockets of the midst and the balance of the midst where everything sits. It just makes everything make more sense. It's one of those things that you can listen to before and after examples, but it's one of those things if you're an audio engineer, mixing records, if you have never experienced analog summon, get to a studio, go rent out a room, and go sit down with somebody who can show you. You got to experience that. Number two, one of the pros of analog summon over digital summon is you get a lot more headroom. In the digital world, you can distort a lot quicker than you can in the analog world. In the analog world, you can push things a lot harder, and not having to worry about headroom as much is nice. Where in modern day music, our LUFS and our RMS levels are so high. Being able to compete against records, and being able to get things and get some of that character that you want in the analog world, you need that headroom to be able to push into some of the gear more. So analog summon definitely is going to bring a lot more headroom. That's for sure. And then number three, like I talked about, ergonomics. You're going to be a lot more hands-on with analog summon. And so I encourage everybody to experience that. But everything ain't all cheesy. Everything ain't just sunshine with analog summon. Let's talk about some of the drawbacks. One, analog summon is a lot more expensive than digital summon. In most cases, it's going to cost thousands of dollars for analog summon. Because, a lot of times you're going to spend about at least $2,000 on a summon mixer itself, right? Then you're going to have to make sure that you have enough I/O with your interface. You got to have enough inputs and outputs to be able to set up everything and take advantage of it. So it's definitely going to be more expensive. Another drawback and kind of analog summon is like you don't get the automatic recall that you do with digital. Once again, like I talked about not long ago, you have to take notes or take pictures or to be able to remember the settings of the equipment, and you have to set that the same every single time that you bring records up. And there can be ways to try to help simplify this, but still, it's never going to be the same like digital. Digital is just automatic recall with plugins and stuff, and that's just, it's just never going to be the same. As of now, it's just not the same. Another thing, the third kind, in my opinion, of analog summon is that you have more maintenance requirements. You might have tubes go out, you might have the, equipment be damaged. You might have to replace things. So the maintenance requirements sometimes of analog summon, depending on the piece of gear, can definitely be more than digital. Although digital still has software updates. You might update your computer and your operating system is incompatible with some of the plug-in manufacturers or your DAW. So digital has its maintenance too, but analog maintenance can be just a little bit different. And analog equipment can make is noisier than digital. So it's going to make a lot more noise, which brings me into number 4, which is a kind of analog summon, and that is more utility gear. And what I mean by that is if you're summon analog, you're going to have to buy a lot more cables, period. You're going to have to buy a lot more cables to be able to make this happen. You're going to probably need to have a patch bay. There's no probably. If you're summoning analog, you probably got other outboard gear as well. So you're going to need to have a patch bay, which goes back to having more cables. You're going to need to have power conditioning, right? Meaning that you're not just going to be able to plug this stuff up into the wall like regular power socket. So you're not just going to be able to use a regular power strip from Walmart or from Lowe's or something like that. You're going to need to have power conditioners that are specified for professional audio gear. And the reasons that you want to have that, I mean, obviously all power surges bring like surge protection. That's common. But they're also going to, power conditioning also is going to have your equipment be a lot less quieter, right? It's going to filter out that noise. So not only is it going to give you surge protection, but it's going to filter out that noise. And trust me, you want that. You don't want noisy equipment if you're using analog equipment. So power conditioning, which is a lot more expensive than just regular power surges. But you're going to want that. You're going to want the power surge. You're going to want the noise filtering. You're going to want that at the end of the day. And power surges can do a lot more. Power conditioning can do a lot more, but you're going to need more of that because you have more physical gear, right? But the age-old debate is always analog versus digital summon. Which one do I think is better? I think if I had to isolate it, right, I'm going to choose analog summon. I think analog summon gives me more space, more depth, more headroom, more character, more width, more mojo. It just gives me a lot of things. But I can perfectly create great sounding records without analog summon and just summon 100% digital. But to me, the real answer to that question is hybrid. Analog is amazing. Digital is amazing. They're both great at different things. So in my opinion, I would encourage, if you can, and if it's in your budget and it makes sense for your business and workflow, use both. Use both. So, hand clap for this episode. I know it probably was a little nerdy, but I think that this is something that I just had to touch on. People ask questions. It's something that I love, and man, you gotta love this stuff, man. So I wanna say we're gonna end out with a single of mine from 2020 called Luke Cage. Rest in peace to my brother Jeff Zahalka, aka Jay Made It. He produced this song. He made the beat. Passed away some years ago, and he's no longer with us. So, my brother, we had these conversations. So, hopefully you're looking down and you're proud at some of the moves that you see being made with Frequency Canvas. Here's Luke Cage.
Yeah. Fight Squad. They want to marvel at something, tell them this.
Tell them.
Water can't break me me like Luke Cage.
Yes, sir.
Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage. I be on track like Hussein, and I keep it true like 2 Chainz, and I got the strength like 2 Trains. White squad drip, that's new frame. Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like Luke Cage. Boy, they can't bring me like I'm Luke Cage. I be on track like Hussein, and I keep it true like 2 Chainz, and I got the strength like 2 Trains. White squad drip, that's new frame. Yeah, shout out my makeup, cause they can't understand us.
Yeah.
Super strength, very reason why they can't break us. Yeah, that'll shock a whole black boy, I can tell you.
Appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Hey, make sure that y'all go check out the Board Talk podcast on all platforms, man. And we appreciate y'all. Share this, like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. It helps us out and it encourages. And if y'all want to recommend some content, head over to frequencycanvas.com. Contact us or email us, office@frequencycanvas.com, and we would love to hear some of y'all feedback. All right, y'all be blessed.